Are you ready for VTT? Should you be worried about it? What is it? Why do we need to even care about it? What is this? This is a little dive I took. And let me tell you, I think you're going to want to know what I found out. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of How to Be a Great GM. My name is Guy, and yes, I am suffering from the worst kind of infection there is, a chest and throat infection. So if I sound a little different, that is because I have the dreaded lurgy. Before we get into this video, VR, you're kind of going, no, not for me, I'm not going to watch it. It's useless. Okay, sure, absolutely, that's fine. That's your prerogative. Pen and paper is where it's at. I have a video on this YouTube channel that I made 4, 5, 6 years ago now, which said, I will never play online. Online is terrible and it sucks and it's just, I'm never going to do it, okay? And now I make a living by running games online. So be wary, young traveler, of what you say you will never, ever do, because sometimes, well, you end up doing it. So isn't it better to be at least forearmed, or at least forewarned that stuff is coming and what you can look out for it? Another thing, full caveat, Dungeon Full Dive, which is the VR VTT that I'm talking about mainly in today's video, did send me this headset so that I could actually review the video. So I'm letting you know that, and I'm also letting you know right up front, VR VTTs are not there yet. We're not there yet. So why the hell am I doing this video? Because we are so nearly there, and when you see where we are, I think if you, like me, come from a computer role-playing space, then I think this might very well be where we end up. I can't see it happening any other way, to be perfectly honest with you. I really cannot. So these were some of the major moments where I was busy working on something and I went, oh my God, this is what VR is going to do. And the first one was map building. The map building in Dungeon Full Dive is incredibly crude at the moment. I have been working with map developers, particularly Dungeon Fog, for years. Years. It takes years to get these things to a point where it's a seamless, smooth, integrated flow and everything is great. Not once in 5 years have I ever walked into the map I have built on Dungeon Fog, on Incarnate, on Wonderdraft, pick a map-making piece of software. Not once have I ever been able to actually walk up to the front doors of the fort that I have built, go through those doors, and look up at the towers, look down, look around. I've never once personally been able to do that. I've had to use my imagination. As a matter of fact, it's one of the steps in my book, The Complete Guide to Becoming a Great GM. The whole step is imagine, visualize the world as if you're standing there. Look around, look at the trees, look at the hills, look at the clouds, look at the towers. Well, I did that. Physically though. Physically, as far as my body was concerned, I was physically there. And that, I think, is one of the major powers of VR. Now, I know that's the stock standard argument for VR. But from a role-playing perspective, folks, it's phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. And I think that's a huge draw. And I was just standing there going, you know, the graphics that they've got in Dungeon Full Dive, they're not beautiful. No one's going to mistake them for a piece of art. They're functional, right? That's okay. It's still alpha. And just because DFD, Dungeon Full Dive, is doing it this way, it doesn't mean that companies in the future are going to do it differently. And they can do it differently. We know that. We know. If you look at all the VTTs that are out there, you've got some that look as if they've still crawled out of the 80s. I'm not going to roll any 20s at all. On the other hand, you've got some that are 3D graphics, you know, dungeon random generators, and you go, yeah, that's nice. But I haven't been able to actually be inside and walk around and open the freaking door and look into the room myself. I have this objective view, and I have this, I'm watching a computer screen that I'm navigating through, but I've never been able to actually stand there, and that's the big thing. And that was the first point. The second point is that there's no editing goblin, by the way. They've all been, you know, seconded off to wherever it is that goblins go over this kind of period. So this is why you get the ramble. But the next thing is the interface. Now, at first, the interface is quite tricky. But then again, you go, well, it is a three-dimensional space, so the interface needs to be able to actually occupy that space. So when you are running the game and you've got this thing open and you've got that thing open and you just flick your wrist and suddenly you've got dice or rulers or whatever you need to have in front of you, that's really cool. What they've done, though, is that they've incorporated sound effects because we know VR is an immersive experience. It's about you seeing and hearing what you're in. You can't feel what you're in. We're not there yet. They're trying, but we're not there yet. And so their sound interface that they've done. As a company, I think this is really innovative. And I'm like, even if the VR thing doesn't work out, this soundboard, I really like how they've done it. But when it's in-game, literally I'm controlling the monsters and things, and I flick my wrist, open up the sound menu, and I can adjust the audio and the sounds as I like.
Yeah, some wind and some sand, I think. That is what I hear. Oh, there's a bird.
Yep. Wait, I got my audio so low.
See, guys.
Now I do.
And then my third, and this is my final point, because I'm not going to talk for too long, I can't. But at the same time, I feel like if these points don't sell it, nothing is going to sell it. Because these are the 3 points for me that were super powerful. And I've got a bonus point after that, because I've just remembered another point. But the third point is the players. Lovely players. Absolutely lovely players. All of them. The developers are all players. One of the players created a little kobold. Kobold stands 3 foot tall. Okay, that's about, this high. Standing off of the ground. Give or take. But I don't really have much to go by except that I can think of a child. I don't really like children. So you kind of go, okay, well, there's this nasty little glazed donut monster thing with scales. It's like, it hasn't improved and it hasn't disproved my disposition towards them. But when I was in game, and I was impersonating the lizard folk that had encountered these heroes on the beach, and I was standing there as the lizard folk on the fricking beach. And this is another major point, by the way. This is the fourth point. That's bonus point hidden in the third point. I was standing there, not the GM impersonating someone. I was standing as a lizard man. I knew my OGAS. It was in my head. Boss had sent me to collect these idiots or to attack them if they were proving difficult. They decided to talk. So I was there, made it much realer. Very nice. Thank you very much. And then the little kobold came running up to me and spoke to me. It spoke to me. This little 3 foot tall thing came running up to me carrying his giant axe, because alpha, and spoke to me. Its little mouth moved up and down and I could see it and it was doing all of the things it was needing to do. I keep looking down because I'm trying to imagine this little kobold. I didn't have to imagine. It was there. It was in the game. It was part of the game. I could see it. I could reach out and pat its little head virtually. And that cemented the deal for me. That cemented the deal for me. As this software progresses, I will be playing more of it. The gaming space, you are either going to embrace this kind of entertainment where you are basically live playing the game. It's almost like you're LARPing. But instead of being restricted by LARP, by the physicality of the flesh, as bad and as poor and as phlegmy as it might be, you're not. You are liberated to play lizards and trolls and sheep and wool clothing. You've got all of these advantages. Why wouldn't you use them? If you're going to be playing online using a VTT, you're going to be making maps or downloading pre-generated maps. You're going to be using tokens and things. All of the stuff that you're going to be doing, you're going to be doing for VR. But now you can see it in front of you. I was blown away. It's very early technology, though. So if you've got some kind of VR headset, go and support Dungeon Full Dive. And I'm not saying this because they're like, oh, well, we've given you technology. You've got to send your viewers to us. I'm not saying it for those reasons. I'm talking about it because they sent me the headset, but I'm not actually interested in that process whatsoever. What I am interested in is saying we want to imagine these spaces. Yes, that's great. This technology is saying, well, here is the next step in imagining those spaces. And it is, as far as I'm concerned, the closest step that we can get in our lifetimes. So have a look at their website. They've got sales and things going on throughout December. Players play free. DMs need the software. Give it a try. I can't express enough to you what an experience it is. It is so trippy. It's so amazingly awesome. I would say I have a pretty strong imagination. But to actually stand on a beach as a lizard man and look through the lizard man's teeth at a little kobold who is talking back to me, whilst being able to look up and see this great big structure, I haven't had an experience like it. I really haven't. And that's why I thought it would be important for me to chat to you and say, well, that's my experience. What have you had? Have you had those kind of things? Do you use Dungeon Full Dive, or you do use something else? Maybe there's other software out there that is doing similar kind of stuff. Share with us. Let us know what this experience is. And absolutely, if you disagree and you say that VR is never going to replace Around the Table, I completely agree. Completely agree. I'm not saying that VR will replace Around the Table. What I am saying is I'm fairly certain that VR, once you've got players who've got the headsets, I doubt they're going to want to go back to just virtual tabletop playing. Because I look at the games that I run for my players every Sunday and every Tuesday or Wednesday or whatever the days are. If I could play with them in VR as opposed to playing them on a VTT, not a question. Not a question. Not in the slightest. It's VR all the way. Anyway, those are my thoughts. Massive thank you to you for watching all the way through to the end. I do appreciate you putting up with this weird thing. I really do. And I won't see you again until, well, probably just won't ever see you ever again, or ever see you for that matter, because these are all online. Unless you come to conventions and things, in which case, please come along and say hello. Until next time, however, I wish you and yours the very happiest of gaming.
My name is Captain Gabriel Phoenix. You probably have heard of me. I'm a very famous vagabond, but at your service.
I of course know the captain, and I'm a dwarf. Nice to meet you.
I am Tyrexius the Third, and I'm the fiercest barbarian in the world. Yeah,
Sorry. I didn't mean to.
fear me.